In a bunker beneath the ruins of the Reich Chancellery, Adolf Hitler puts a pistol to his head and ends his life. Instead, the reactions were complex, strategic, and deeply revealing of the new world that was about to be born from the ashes of the old one. For Winston Churchill, the news brought a profound sense of relief. Exhaled. After years of relentless struggle, of bombing raids, of immense sacrifice, Hitler's death meant something simple and immediate. The war in Europe was finally, truly ending. The great beast that had terrorized the continent was slain, but Churchill was a pragmatist, not a romantic. Even as London prepared to celebrate, he was already looking ahead, his mind fixed on the next great challenge. He saw the Red Army not just as liberators, but as a new occupying force spreading across Eastern and Central Europe. Even in this moment of supreme victory, he warned the British people, and urgently tried to warn the Americans, that a new shadow was falling over the continent. Soviet expansion. Hitler's death closed one dark chapter of European history, but Churchill could already see the next one opening. It was a chapter that would soon be called the Cold War. For him, the end of one war was simply the beginning of another kind of struggle. Across the Atlantic, the United States reacted with a different kind of sober finality. President Franklin D. Roosevelt, the man who had led America through the Great Depression and almost the entire war, was not there to see its end. He had died just 2 weeks earlier, on April 12th. His successor, Harry Truman, was new to the presidency and had been thrust into the immense responsibility of finishing the war. When he was briefed about Hitler's suicide, his response was cold, concise, and full of satisfaction. According to reports, he simply stated, "Justice has been served." There was no grand speech, no triumphant declaration, just the grim acknowledgement that a necessary task was complete. But Truman's mind, like Churchill's, was already moving elsewhere. Hitler was gone, but the war was not over. Imperial Japan was still fighting with ferocious determination across the Pacific. Truman was now responsible for ending that conflict and saving American lives. He was already weighing the terrifying options before him, options that would lead to the dawn of the atomic age. Hitler's death was a period at the end of a sentence, but Truman was already writing the next paragraph. And what about in France? For General Charles de Gaulle, the leader of the Free French forces, the reaction was filled with characteristic drama and national pride. When he heard the news, he declared that the monster was dead. This wasn't just a military or a political statement. For France, it was deeply emotional. It was a vindication. Hitler was the man who had humiliated the French Republic in 1940, who had marched his troops down the Champs-Élysées and forced a surrender in the very same railway car where Germany had surrendered in 1918. His death meant revenge. It signified the restoration of French dignity and the return of Paris as a great European capital. After 5 years of occupation, resistance, and fighting to reclaim their homeland, Hitler's demise was the ultimate symbol that France was finally, irrevocably free. It was the psychological closure the nation desperately needed to begin rebuilding. But perhaps the most interesting and consequential reaction of all occurred nearly 9,000 kilometers away, in Tokyo. When Emperor Hirohito of Japan was informed of his ally's suicide, he understood the strategic reality immediately and with perfect clarity. Japan was now utterly and completely alone. For years, the Axis alliance, however fragile, had meant that the Allies were fighting a two-front war. Germany's fight in Europe was a massive distraction, tying up millions of Allied troops and vast resources. Now, that distraction was gone. There would be no miracle weapons from Germany, no negotiated peace brokered by Hitler, no hope of rescue. So, in a strange twist of fate, Hitler's suicide in a Berlin bunker didn't just end the European conflict. It directly accelerated the end of World War II itself. There is a final, profound irony in all of this. They met his end with suspicion, with immense relief, with grim satisfaction, with a thirst for revenge, and in the case of his own ally, with a practical calculation that led to surrender. There was no legend, only an ending. The Third Reich, which was meant to last 1,000 years, was gone after just 12, and a new world was being born. It would be a dangerous world, defined by atomic diplomacy, superpower rivalry, and the slow, painful process of decolonization. Hitler's death was not the beginning of a myth. It was simply the end of a nightmare and the turbulent dawn of our modern age. Thanks for watching. And if you found this piece of history as fascinating as I did, make sure to like and subscribe for more stories like this.